This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 128. And before I dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that I have a brand new online workshop available for you to watch, absolutely free. It's called The 3 Ways Being a Good Girl Holds You Back in Business or Your Career, and What to Do Instead. This is for you if you are often struggling with overwhelm and being stressed out, and you're really thinking you're on your way to burnout. Or maybe you have such doubt about yourself, you often hold yourself back in speaking up in meetings, promoting yourself for new projects, or even raising your rates in your business. I invite you to head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/goodgirlways, it's all one word, to check out the new workshop. All right, here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. The episode that I'm sharing today was not the original one I had planned. I felt very compelled to actually talk about healthy and unhealthy leadership today due to the recent events in the United States on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of 2021. So whether you are a leader in your own business for a Fortune 500 company, in your family, or you're just the leader of one, but you're in a service-oriented business, I'm going to encourage you just to stay tuned and listen in to hear what I saw, what I witnessed, and the experience I was having, but also those around me and the things that I saw on social media and how it impacted them. So if you're located in the U.S., and especially if you're a highly sensitive person, I truly hope by now you have been taking time for yourself over the weekend. I hope that you have reached out to support if you needed to talk about your own experience, and each of you be able to share what was going on for you in that time. For me, it was heartbreak, it was sadness, it was anger. And so the anger really drove me to write this today. And I find it fascinating, right? I just recently did episode 122, The 3 Benefits of Anger. Well, this is me putting it into action. The encouragement from a leader to provoke violence, encourage violence, for what they're calling the insurrection. It's really the people who stormed the Capitol are domestic terrorists. And when you are a leader over people, and again, over a nation, over a state, over a city, over a business, big, small, or even within your own family, leadership is not about power over people. And I was speaking to a friend of mine last week, and she really encouraged me. She's like, I think you need to share this based on your own experience of the work that you've done over the years. And I'm like, I'm not too sure, but this is what really kind of helped spur me to do this episode. So I have done, this, I'm going on over, close to 20 years of working with people, especially women and families who have been impacted by domestic violence, right? Trauma. I have worked with men when I used to work in a agency back in California that we specialized in domestic violence, group work and individual work for both the perpetrators and the victims. So here's the thing. If you've been intentionally violent with somebody, you are considered a perpetrator. I get it is a label. For now, stick with me on that. If that whole thought process is, I want to have power over someone or those others, it is you're treating them as objects. It's not leading people to feel empowered, it's leading people to feel disempowered and that they're not worth anything. It goes back to, I don't know how many times I have shared the power and control wheel with both the perpetrators and victims of violence. And It's a wheel that talks about on the outside of the ring, it's physical violence, sexual violence. That's the big piece of it. But inside power and control, it's about using intimidation, using emotional abuse, using isolation, minimizing, denying, and blaming others for their actions. It's using children if you're within a family, using male privilege. It can also be a woman privilege. There are both perpetrators, men and women, so we won't discount that. Using economic abuse, using coercion and threats. That is all part of power and control. That is not about equality in any way, shape, or fashion. The words we use really do matter. They have an impact on those listening to us. So when I worked in the domestic violence agency, we talked quite a bit, and I worked with gang members. I worked with teen and adult gang members and just perpetrators in general. I worked with victims of different ages. The common things were just what I mentioned on that power and control wheel of the perpetrators. So it's the power and control over other people, that as if they are objects. They're not truly human beings. It's like putting a vase up on a shelf, and when I want to get it down, I'm going to get it down. Other than that, they don't mean anything to me. Perpetrators truly can change if they choose to. If they take responsibility for their actions, if they are accountable for how that impacted other people, if they are committed to change how they treat others, how they even think about themselves, they really can shift from being a perpetrator to somebody who says, yes, I'm respecting human life. I'm respecting that somebody else has a different thought process than I do. They have a different look than I do. They have different belief systems than I do. They stop believing that the world owes them something or things are owed to them. They seek to understand what is going on with the other person, or they seek to understand the differences in the belief systems. You can even agree to disagree. That's moving into the healthy equality framework versus the power over somebody. The other thing that was brought to my attention, from different social media posts that I was seeing and dialogue as I was seeing with colleagues of mine, the amount of police and security that was going on during this ratifying there's change in leadership versus than what occurred during Black Lives Matter protests and raising awareness of what's going on. There were so many conversations saying, wow, yeah, if it was Black people, brown people storming that or being out there protesting the way that they were protesting, that there would have been a lot more deaths. There would have been a lot more arrests. There would have been a lot more violence against the people. And I agree with them that we have so much evidence saying that, people of color, Indigenous, Black people, there's much more violence against them than white. I was honestly surprised they didn't back up like buses and the big, I don't know what they're called, but big trucks that the police force have that literally when they arrest a group of people, they throw them in the back of these trucks. I was so surprised not to see that happen, especially when we were going over curfew, and especially for those who were actually chanting for the death of some of our other leaders. And it's like, wow, there was such a stark difference between that white privilege versus those who are not white. I know many of you ladies who are listening, this is not how you conduct your leadership. I know this is not how you conduct yourself in the world. For those of you, though, who just wanted a better distinction between healthy leadership and unhealthy leadership, I hope that sheds just a little bit of light of that's actually power and control over people, what we saw last week. And our country is not a dictatorship. It is a democracy, and it doesn't matter which side of the political arena you are on. You have a voice, you have your belief systems, but it's never, ever okay to use violence against one another. So now I want to flip the coin and talk about what healthy leadership is. And I know, as I've talked about in episode 69, where I said, introverts and HSPs make great leaders. And I still fully believe that. I even believe extroverts, you absolutely can make great leaders too. I want you to think of some of the leaders who really inspire you, who do things in a way that you're like, yes, I want to bring more of that in my work. I want to do more of that in my life. For me, it's like Oprah, Sheryl Sandberg, it's Susan Cain. I know, and the most recently person who is deceased is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's Stacey Abrams, right? I mean, my gosh, she's just kicking butt all over the place. All these women are doing such incredible things as leaders. They're not about instilling violence or inciting violence. They're about educating. They're about basic human rights. They're about equality. They're about inclusion. They're about speaking up for one another. They're about, gender equality. So that's what leadership is. Leadership is seeking to understand. And I know as highly sensitives, you all are great at listening and you're understanding and you're slow to respond to things because you're taking it in, you're observing it, you're processing that information. Healthy leadership is also being humble. It means you are continuing to do personal development, to really know yourself, to really explore and get curious about what are my belief systems. It's using those critical thinking skills that you have. It's not just the whole group think and throwing your brain out the door saying, I'm going to do what everybody else does because it's really cool because I don't really want to think for myself. No, that's not good leadership. That's not healthy leadership. Healthy leadership is also taking responsibility for your own actions, your own words, your own behaviors, apologizing when it's necessary, being accountable for those actions that you've done. It's making sure you're also staying in alignment with your own values. It's being able to assist others and really helping them reach their full potential if they choose to. It's helping foster that autonomy. It's inspiring others through your actions and your words. It's having empathy and compassion for other human beings. It's about bringing people together and actually solving problems, which is usually the good for the company, good for the people, good for the state, good for the country. All kinds of goodness come from that problem-solving ability. It's being inclusive. It's taking action to end racism, prejudice. Again, you know me, I've said it before in one of the previous podcasts, the odds are I am not going to be at protest. But there are a lot of other ways that I can actively help end racism in our country. And yeah, it does it more behind the scenes. So you may not see me doing all this sort of stuff, but I'm actively doing things to the best of my ability. And there's still a buttload of things I have to learn because, again, I have the white privilege. I know that. Doesn't mean that I stop learning. It doesn't mean I stop growing. It means being very intentional of continuing to educate myself and talking to others. And that's why, when we're able to travel again, I love to travel because I continue to learn about other cultures. I continue to learn about other ways of being, and it just continues to shift things. To me, being a good leader is about honestly wanting the good for your other human beings. And it's actually seeing one another as human beings. That is our common denominator. Each and every one of us is human. We can have different hair color, different capabilities, different beliefs, different ethnicities. All these differences, we still have things in common, and it's looking for what do we have in common, not what we have to pull one another apart, to divide us against one another. I've said it before in so many different podcast episodes that I think we are so much stronger together in any sort of issue we want to eradicate, whether it's poverty, education, hunger, all these things. When we come together and we bring people of different, quote, different together, we can see it from all these different vantage points. And instead of fighting in between one another, we stick it outside of ourselves and say, let's focus on eradicating that. Let's focus on, how we can really solve that versus fight against one another. Oh, my way is the best, or this or that. It's like, how can we really work together to make this happen? So I want you to think about today, I'm going to encourage you, I guess, to really look at some inspired action maybe that you can also take For some of you, if you still have kiddos at your house, whatever their age group is, but especially if they're teenagers and they're getting closer to that voting age, have conversations with them about how did they feel about what they saw. What are their thoughts about what a leader is and what a leader isn't? Ask them about how they think about conflict and differences and ways to be able to cultivate empathy and understanding in a way that is nonviolent. Look at your own belief systems and ask about how did you feel about what you heard? Is there anything in your life where you can change how you view leadership or bring more of your healthy leadership out there into the world so people know this about you? Whether you're a leader of one or a leader over others, I encourage you to speak with other people, especially if you have a team, about how they're doing with things and even how they believe you are doing as a leader. Actually ask for that feedback. How do you see that? And do you see me as open to dialogue? Do you see me as somebody who's open to discussion? And if not, take that in. I know it might be really hard and scary, but it's being able to say, okay, what can I do to improve upon that? How can I support you all better in what we do as this organization? How can we do it better as this, department? How can I do it better as a service-oriented, practitioner, coach, healer, whatever title you put on yourself for that? Explore where are the areas that I can continue to upgrade and do leadership even better. One of the most famous quotes I hear often by Mahatma Gandhi is, be the change you want to see in the world. One of my mottos that I use, and I often tell my clients, is, I'm here changing people's lives one person at a time. And what that does when I see that, right, is it's the ripple effect. Every time people are upgrading, up-leveling their belief systems and coming more into their power and they're more confident, they're no longer being fear-driven. They're more connected to their soul. And so they're able to be driven from a very connected place throughout the whole universe because we're all connected. Whether you truly believe that or not, that's my belief. I think we are. And so we have this ability to raise the consciousness throughout the world, and it starts from within. And so to be the best leader you can be, you got to keep going back to starting within, using your voice, taking up space when you're leading others. All right, ladies, until the next time, may you be well, may you be safe, and may you continue to being the incredible leaders that I know you are. To sign up for my new workshop, 3 Ways Being a Good Girl Holds You Back Professionally in Your Business or Your Career, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/goodgirlways.